Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of USA Global TV and Radio. The content presented is for informational purposes only and is intended to foster open discussion and debate. Viewer discretion is advised. USA Global TV and Radio does not endorse any particular viewpoint and encourages viewers to seek out additional information and perspectives. Saving America with Dr. David D. Schein.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome to Saving America. This is your host, Dr. David D. Schein. White House denies Biden is sabotaging Harris campaign. Multiple news sources, including some of the slopstream media, have carried this fascinating story. So the idea is that Biden, of course, is not happy about being dumped. It's hard for him to have a happy face when he is ignored in most cases today. Even though Harris has foolishly admitted in a couple recent interviews that she would change none of Biden's decisions, she is also trying not to be Biden-light. So when Biden fully on board with everything during his administration, she ends up in a very difficult position. Commentators have noticed Biden wearing a Trump a MAGA hat and praising how well GOP Florida Governor DeSantis has handled the hurricane recoveries. Recently, of course, DeSantis spoke with Biden, but not Harris, regarding the preparations and the recovery for Hurricane Milton. Some quotes from the campaign trail are indeed illuminating. Jason Meister, a Republican political strategist for the Trump campaign, claimed that Biden is intentionally enacting revenge on Harris for knifing him in the back. Folks, I just love this kind of story. Hank Scheinkoff, a veteran Democrat strategist, said Biden is refusing to embrace Harris's campaign because he wants people to understand who is still the boss. As the so-called honeymoon for Harris is over, the polls are beginning to look much better for former President Trump. I watched the new political video featuring men declaring that they are man enough to support Vice President Kamala Harris. Folks, I can't make this stuff up. The video is so silly that people laugh at it, not being impacted by it at all. It's not helping, folks. Speaking of not being mocked, it's pretty bad when the far left Saturday Night Live, now known as SNL, does a skit on the campaign. It features a fake Harris and a fake Waltz being just as stupid as they have been on the campaign trail. They specifically targeted her mindless, coming from a middle-class family, claim that is falling on very deaf ears. It didn't work the first time. It hasn't worked on the 15th time. In the meantime, millionaire for no apparent reason, former President Obama went out on the trail to stump for her. His demeaning remarks designed to change the minds of many black men who are supporting Trump. Clearly, it's a loser strategy. Flying in from your mansion in Martha's Vineyard or your vacation home in Hawaii is not going to make much of an impression on hardworking Americans of either gender or any color. But Harris continues to be her own worst enemy. The more visible she is, the more the poll numbers sink, and that is justified. She is just a terrible candidate. So in an effort to get black male votes for herself, she is pitching a special loan program for black entrepreneurs. Of course, this is illegal. Hey, Kamala, did you ever hear of the United States Constitution and equal treatment under the law? Yeah. So Paired with this, she wants to legalize marijuana and tells her audience that they can get rich selling grass. This part is currently illegal on the federal level, and I find it demeaning to suggest that working people can't make money if they're not dealing drugs. Of course, one pundit noted that she locked up black men in California for selling marijuana. Department of Justice trying to cheat in election in Virginia. This is a case that has me screaming at the news reports on my car radio. Perhaps some of my audience join me in that exercise of free speech, perhaps with no one else in the car. In a widely reported scam, the Biden-Harris U.S. Justice Department, or should I say the Injustice Department, has sued the state of Virginia. What horrible crime did Virginia commit? Last year, according to GOP Virginia Governor Youngkin, Virginia removed 6,303 people from the voter rolls for not being legally able to vote. Well, in August, he told the Board of Election to make sure everyone on the rolls were eligible to vote. The numbers here are unclear. One report I found said Fairfax County, the largest county population in the state, had purged only 49 people. In any event, a bunch of pro-illegal outfits and the feds are suing VA, Virginia, for fear of depriving some of these illegals from voting. Okay, I can understand some of these fringe groups, but the feds using your tax dollars because a state government is preventing people from voting illegally. Come on, people. I sure hope the GOP takes over in January. I want a purge of the anti-American Department of Justice from the top to the bottom. I note the number of former Department of Justice folks being interviewed by the conservative media. This crash of this important agency is not like a car accident, but more like the sinking of the Titanic. Time to be for American justice and stop wasting the taxpayers' money on lawfare and this type of nonsense. It is simple. If any individual who's legally allowed to vote is cut off the voting rules, he or she can go to the local election judge and produce their paperwork. I'm sure they can cast a provisional ballot and then prove that the ballot can be processed. All of us are aware that there's unfortunately a continuing controversy of biological males playing in collegiate women's sports. The College Fix recently noted a series of deliberate defaults to the San Jose State women's volleyball team due to their having a male athlete. Well, it seems like that might not be a big deal, but if a big biological male smashes a volleyball at your daughter, you may be dealing with a concussion or worse. Idaho Governor Brad Little praised Boise State's decision to forfeit a game. He stated, "I applaud Boise State for working within the spirit of my executive order, the Defending Women's Sports Act. We need to ensure player safety for all of our female athletes and continue the fight for fairness in women's sports." So not every politician out there is a whack job. Switching to business, Walgreens is closing stores and CVS is laying off employees. Multiple sources are reporting on this serious business news. As a close observer of businesses around the US, I am not surprised at this news. I observe that there are simply a lot of Walgreens and CVS stores. It seems like they are everywhere. They seem to be overbuilt, and yes, it was not my imagination. Walgreens is closing 1,200 stores, and CVS is laying off 2,900 employees. First, part of this is due to changing consumer habits. Customers can get their prescriptions in many places, so they are not dependent on the old-fashioned drugstore. Online is obviously a major competitor all by itself. Second, they are not supported by secondary merchandise sales, since these stores usually are retail plus, with the exception of some weekly sale items. Third, not mentioned in all the news coverage, many markets, especially in California, have serious theft issues. For Walgreens, closing the uneconomic stores just makes sense. This is sad news for some customers who are dependent on a local drugstore. Online is nice, but things are not always delivered overnight. Note that a recent announcement by Target to close 9 stores involved theft issues. Many of the stores were in woke jurisdictions like California and New York. I suspect same issue with Walgreens. A great source for news with a special slant on what's really happening in China is NTD, just 3 letters. They have a free newsletter with a near daily comprehensive report. They just released an article covering a new documentary film called State Organs. It was made possible since a political prisoner in China somehow escaped to tell the story of how China is harvesting organs from people whose religion or other principles do not match the red China line. Shen Paiming, first known survivor of forced organ harvesting, made an appearance at the initial screening of the 76-minute film. The producer was Raymond Zhang, and it was scored by composer Daryl Bennett. It tracks two families searching for their missing loved ones in Red China. It revealed state-sanctioned forced organ harvesting. It's hard to believe that this can happen in the year 2024. Sounds more like another Holocaust situation. A pitch was made in the article to support legislation like the Falun Gong Protection Act. I doubt any American waiting for a transplant, no matter how desperate, wants to know that that organ was harvested from a Chinese political prisoner. All of us are aware that there's unfortunately a continuing controversy of biological males playing in collegiate women's sports. The College Fix recently noted a series of deliberate defaults to the San Jose State women's volleyball team due to their having a male athlete. While it seems like that might not be a big deal, but if a big biological male smashes a volleyball at your daughter, you may be dealing with a concussion or worse. Idaho Governor Brad Little praised Boise State's decision to forfeit a game. He stated, "I applaud Boise State for working within the spirit of my executive order, the Defending Women's Sports Act. We need to ensure player safety for all of our female athletes and continue the fight for fairness in women's sports." So not every politician out there is a whack job. Baby born in parking lot of a Michigan microbrewery. The story has been picked up by various media sources. I referred to the local Kalamazoo newspaper for the best information. So Aaron Baker gets a call from his wife, Kyle, and says it's time to go to the hospital to deliver their third child. The first children came in a normal fashion, so he's not stressing it. Apparently underestimated the speed of numbers three's determination to arrive. Predictably, the little fellow was ready to charge out, and so Aaron calls 911 on he and his wife's way to the hospital, asks for the ambulance to meet them along the route. Well, 2 blocks ahead is the couple's favorite microbrewery, One Well Brewing. So he says, "Meet us in the parking lot at the brewery." Well, the little fellow had a different idea. He starts to pop out before they even get to the parking lot. Once they're in the parking lot, the dad jumps out of the driver's seat, runs around the passenger seat, and delivers the little fellow safely. Then the ambulance takes the baby and mom away, and they're fine. The brewery has a new blood orange brew, and it's naming it Special Delivery after the incident. When the baby, Forrest is his name, is old enough to drink, he's been awarded free beer for life by the brewery. Our series Interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. I think when you hear from our next guest, you're going to agree with me that she deserves the moniker of an interesting person. Saving America welcomes Lana Santonzi for her first time. She is running for U.S. Representative in District 18. And for folks, this is a very interesting deal. There are 2 elections on the ballot, one for the incomplete term of Sheila Jackson Lee, and we're going to have our interview with Maria Dunn for that in a next. But the important thing is that Lana is running for the full term, and she is running against the former mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner. And I also want to disclose that this is my district. I have lived in this district for decades, and it's an odd-shaped district, includes the center and east sides of the Heights, as well as many other Houston neighborhoods, even including Houston International Airport for some reason. Lana was a legal immigrant to the United States when she was just 6 years old. Today, she is a wife and a mother. She is also a deeply religious person. She has worked hard to achieve the American dream by pursuing an education. She finished with her master's degree at Texas Women's University, where she graduated with honors. Lana's professional journey led her to serve as a federal officer for 12 years. Throughout this time, Lana advocated for and defended the values and opportunities that America represents. We welcome Lana Sansazzoni for her first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you over here. And of course, we're all rooting for you. Of course, early voting has started, and I will be over there. I'm going to give it a few days until the crowd eases up. I'm very excited. I heard on the news this morning that they had a line, 2 blocks line to vote in Montgomery County, which of course is a conservative part of the greater Houston area. And I think that's a very good sign.
Yes, it is. I was out there today and the lines are long everywhere. Everywhere I turn, the line is long. So yeah, they're out there.
That's fantastic. As you know, we ask our guests 3 questions as part of our model. And in your early life, you had challenges that others may not have faced by coming to a new country as a child. Share with our audience how you managed to thrive and earn a degree from Texas Women's University with honors.
You know, so I came here as a little girl. I was around 6 years old. Of course, as 6, you really don't know much about where you're going or the country that you're coming to. But as I grew up in this country, America, I love so much, I realized how much this country has done for me. It's given my family opportunities that I could never get anywhere else. And I believe that as an immigrant, you take advantage of all the opportunities America has. Everyone should, whether you're a citizen born of this country or an immigrant that came here and eventually became a citizen. Everyone should take advantage of the fact that this country gives everyone the opportunity to grow and to become and flourish into the person that you should be.
Well, you certainly have. So prior to running for office, you indicated that you had been a federal officer for 12 years. Please share with our audience what your job entailed and what you learned about the government while doing this work.
So I have 4 different degrees, 2 bachelor's and my master's, of course, from TWU. And when I applied for the federal government, it took a long time. So I went back to school and got my master's. But when I started working for the federal government, I realized that, man, this is my dream job. I loved it. I loved getting up every day to go to work. I loved it. I wasn't one of those people that dreaded going to work. I loved it. I looked forward to it. But as I continued to work for the government, I realized that our government is extremely flawed and broken. And we have laws that need to be updated. And we also need to implement new ideas within the government, such as right now, with our borders, we're not implementing the laws. And that's not correct. That should not be. The laws should be implemented. So I realized that when illegal immigrants come over to the United States, they know the laws better than we do. And because they know the loopholes in the laws, they use it against us. So these things need to be changed and they need to be updated.
Yeah, well, it's a very challenging situation. You certainly get no argument from me that our government system presently is sincerely broken. So our third question is, you are running for office for the first time, and it's very exciting. Tell our audience something about how you formed your decision and what you hope to accomplish if elected.
So I loved working for the federal government, but I am deeply religious. I love God. And even though I loved working for the government, God said, no, 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 I've got something else for you to do. So I did struggle at first when God asked me to run. But as time went on, I accepted the call and took the step out to run. So this is why I'm running. It's really not about me. It's really about the community, helping the community, fighting for the community. And it's something that God asked me to do. So I want to be faithful to him.
And what are your key elements? What do you feel that you can do for this district, which includes me, as you know?
So we're definitely fighting to lower crime. Of course, our economy is struggling right now. I've never seen so many elderly come out of retirement, not because they're bored, it's because they cannot put food on the table. We need to have them live out their lives because they've worked as long as they have. Everyone is feeling the struggle right now, whether you're young, you're old, you're middle, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, everyone is feeling it. We've got to build back up our economy. I'm also running on infrastructure. As you know, in Houston, we get a lot of hurricanes, and because we get hurricanes, we have flooding and we lose power. So we need someone to go to Washington to fight for us in order to get funding, in order to get these things progress and become better. And definitely term limits. We have to have term limits. I'm finding that though Sheila Jackson Lee was in the seat for 30 years, there are areas that are struggling. That should not be. If you're in a seat for 30 years, then this place should be immaculate. It should be perfect, but it's not. And we need to have term limits. And when you have term limits, then whoever's in that seat for that time will fight to do the best that they can because they know they have a limited amount of time. But if you are sitting in a seat for a very long time, guess what? You get relaxed, you get complacent, and you just don't want to do anything. You're not fighting for the people anymore. You're fighting for yourself. So we need term limits.
Lana Sansoni, it is so great to meet you and have you as a guest on Saving America. How can our audience get more information about you and your campaign?
So you can visit my website, Lana Centonzi for Congress. That's LANACENTONZE for Congress. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Go out and vote.
This is Dr. David D. Schein for a Saving America special covering a couple elections and a couple bond issues that we think of a special concern here in the United States of America, and specifically in the great state of Texas. First on the list, and certainly of concern on a national level, not just state level, is the Texas U.S. Senate race between Colin Allred and Ted Cruz. This could turn out to be the most expensive Senate race in history. Normally, in a red state like Texas, Republican Ted Cruz would be considered a walkaway, and there would be a token candidate holding the Democrat slot. In this case, desperate Democrats want to make an issue of hardcore conservative, and frankly, they're willing to buy the seat just to make a point. The Dems are likely to lose the Senate either way based on current polls, but a win here would help them lick their wounds. I do not like Ted Cruz as a person, just as I do not like Donald Trump as a person. However, I vote for both candidates because I feel that they are the best for the country. In this case, both Cruz and Trump are far better for the United States than their opponents. Howard has tried to make immigration an issue since his backers know that this is the #1 issue in Texas. His only point is that Cruz opposed the Senate bill that claimed to be an immigration reform bill. It failed, and in fact, the GOP-led House told the Senate that it would be dead on arrival in the House in any event. This was a terrible bill that would have basically have cemented the failed Biden-Harris policies of the last 3.5, frankly, nearly 4 years now. This is not a reform. It would simply make open borders American policy. Cruz rightfully has opposed it. Allred now claims to be tough on the border. His problem is that the Trump campaign and the Cruz campaign have found actual video of Allred proclaiming that the border wall is racist, and if elected, he will tear it down. That's a big win here for Cruz. Sadly, the other major issue on Allred's end is abortion. His mega problem here is that abortion is a state-by-state issue. This is a federal election. Cruz does not decide what the abortion policy is in Texas. This is totally false advertising. I agree that the Texas abortion law is being interpreted too strictly. However, if that is Allred's position, then he needs to run against Governor Abbott in the next state election. It is not in play in this election. It is not in play in this election, and they need to be honest about that. Allred is running ads trying to appear to be a big family man. However, the Cruz campaign has nailed him for opposing rules prohibiting biological males from playing in women's sports. In a brand new ad, vets have nailed Allred for supporting the military, for paying transgender surgery for members of the military and even their dependents. I certainly do not think this is a good use of American military's limited funds, and I believe that this is a very significant issue to those people out there, many in Texas who are vets. Inflation and the economy are major issues for voters. In this vacuous campaign, despite millions upon millions of dollars being spent, the campaigns have ignored this. I assume Cruz assumes he's on top here, and Allred cannot stretch his lies enough to try and make a campaign issue out of it. Texas loves playing football. Allred notes in a commercial to have played football for Baylor. Interestingly, he omits playing for the Tennessee Titans pro team. I guess since it appears he was a bench warmer there and he did not want to focus on that. Either way, nice idea to try, but irrelevant to whether he knows anything about good politics in Texas. Also, the Titans were formerly known as the Houston Oilers, and he may not want to remind longtime Houston fans that the Oilers snuck out of town to Tennessee in the middle of the night under former owner Bud Adams. Yeah. His real background is far left. He went to law school at UC Berkeley, widely regarded as one of the most liberal schools in the country. Then he worked in the Obama administration. He never mentions this in his commercials, of course. If Cruz was a more attractive candidate, this would be a total wipeout. However, given the advertising blitz, I am still projecting Cruz with a win by 5%. Texas U.S. House District 18. This is an open seat due to the death of Sheila Jackson Lee. She did an awful job for over 25 years. I know this since this is my personal campaign district. In the race is Lana Cantizoni for GOP versus Sylvester Turner for the Dems. Of course, Sylvester Turner is the failed former mayor of Houston. Unfortunately, this district has been gerrymandered to be heavily Democrat. All I need to say about Turner is that he has run an invisible race and apparently hopes that voters will forget the miserable job that he did as mayor for 6 years. In turn, Lana Cantizoni is running for office for the first time. She's a mom and a deeply religious woman. She immigrated legally to the United States. She earned a master's degree at TWU, Texas Women's University, with honors. Her professional journey is as a federal officer for a span of 12 years. Regarding her campaign focus, it is securing our borders, upgrading infrastructure, and return to a thriving economy. She also supports term limits. Hey, what's not to like about a fresh voice in a district that has struggled for so long? Turner certainly is not going to move anything forward. He proved that during his time as mayor. This could be a sleeper race if people will wake up and give Lana Cantizoni a chance. Harris County Flood Control District Proposition A. Well, at least they're being honest about raising taxes. In the past, most ballot measures like this passed. More recently, voters already burdened by high real estate taxes are not feeling so generous. Concern about flooding is a very real issue in southeastern Texas, and we just watched major flooding over Florida. It is my position that government at all levels have wasted our tax dollars and are not properly investing it in infrastructure. I am calling on voters to push Harris County to economize and get this done within their current budget. They can become a model for the rest of this badly run country. Therefore, vote no on this proposal. Houston Independent School District Propositions A and B. That's right, HISD is seeking not one, but two huge bond issues. They total just shy of $1 billion. I am sure it would exceed that amount when interest and other fees are added. In Prop A, they want to expand and add buildings. In Prop B, they're asking for technology and systems equipment. Note that the school district tax is the largest component of the huge combined Texas real estate taxes. Again, most residents have their kids in public schools and want their kids to have good buildings and good equipment. My kids went to HISD, and I want that for the community. However, I question, when does it stop? When will the system consolidate buildings and focus on wasting less money across the board? HISD, Show me that you have done right with my hard-earned tax dollars, and then we can discuss giving you more money. Most Americans are struggling to pay bills due to high inflation and high taxes. I do not feel the mood is to give any government agency more money. We are told the birth rate is way down. The cost of living close into the city, which is much of HISD, is very high. The current pattern is that really young adults and some of the older families live in the city. Otherwise, the young families live out in the suburban school districts. Certainly, HISD can do a lot better with its current budget. And I also criticize them for not including in the bond issue what would be the impact on the taxes that people are paying. Therefore, I vote against both HISD bond issues. You know, as we think about Halloween, we think about kids in costumes. Some are really scary, like Freddy Krueger, the Chainsaw Killer, and of course, Frankenstein. But what about the real life horrors who waste our tax dollars, commit crimes, and those who allow others to commit crimes? As a community service, we try to identify those offenders and award them a well-deserved Saving America F grade. The badge of dishonor today belongs to well-known Katie Couric, the former host of the Today Show and an alleged journalist. She was on a talk show recently and was asked how she viewed Trump voters. And we're going to quote, "The socioeconomic disparities are a lot and class resentment is a lot. And anti-intellectualism and elitism is what is driving many of these anti-establishment people, which are Trump voters. So I think that is a huge problem we have to address." So voting for Trump is a major problem that people like Katie Couric need to address. That's kind of interesting. Katie Couric is a graduate of the University of Virginia. I hold 2 graduate degrees from that well-regarded university. I take no joy in a fellow Cavalier being this ignorant. Maybe years of fame and fortune have taken a toll on good old Katie. For the record, again, I am not a big supporter of Trump. However, he is the only candidate for president at this time that I can support. I do feel that voters of many stripes and descriptions support him. Recall that good old Hillary Clinton referred to the Trump supporters as deplorables, and in my opinion, that helped her to lose the 2016 presidential election. And I see Katie doing that in this particular situation. So Saving America awards today's F grade to Katie Couric for both being blind to today's realities and failing to connect with a large swath of Americans who support Trump. We are talking about Sheila Jackson Lee. Now, Sheila is unfortunately my congressperson. Yes, folks, I live in the 18th congressional district, a heavily gerrymandered district, which just happens to include this little clip of the Heights where 1111 Heights, the home for Claremont Management Group and Saving America, is located. And I can tell you that it's been a total waste since she took office in 1995. Do your arithmetic, folks. She's been in office 28 years. Now, when she was elected, and I remember that vividly, I wasn't that upset because she displaced a total F grader named Craig Washington, who had been a disgrace to the Congress and a disgrace to the greater Houston area. So there was some promise there. And just by way of background, I've known who Sheila Jackson Lee was since the early 1980s. She was on city council. I was active in local administrative things. I was on some HISD committees. And so I got a chance to meet her. She appeared to be bright and to have a tremendous future ahead of her. And I guess she delivered that when she got elected by defeating an incumbent in Craig Washington. And there's a huge challenge to defeat an incumbent, especially someone sitting in Congress. And she did that, and that's to her credit. Since then, it's been awful. It's been downhill all the way since then, and lots of luck. Any of the rest of us in Congressional 18 here in Texas, trying to get somebody over there to actually help you from her office. But her latest embarrassment and how she attracted the attention of Saving America is her proposal, Leading America White Supremacy Act of 2023. That's right, folks. which would criminalize hate speech that vilifies or is otherwise directed against any non-white person or group. Notwithstanding the fact that this clearly violates the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment, and since the GOP controls Congress, this will never move forward. It's just stupid on its face, folks. Look, white people are about to be the minority in the United States. That's right. There will be more Hispanic, Black, and Asian people in the United States than white people. I think she's got this backwards, folks. Yeah. And so it's going to be kind of interesting as this moves forward and we continue to see some of this fringe stuff going on. But you know what? It's just not going to last much longer as far as I can tell. She is another exhibit A in my drive for term limits for all elected officials. And I mean from dog catcher to the president of the United States, we must have rational term limits and we must have them now, not later. So see my book, Bad Deal for America, and Sheila is in that book and not in a good way. So Saving America awards its not coveted F grade to Sheila Jackson Lee for just being a total waste of space and for this stupid proposal that she made recently. And in this case, we have a person who has suffered a serious medical condition. Shortly before the primary in Pennsylvania, Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, suffered a severe stroke. And right before the election, the primary election in May, he said, well, gee, the doctors worked a miracle. Everything's cool. I'm doing great. Now we're getting a different story. And even that whack left-wing operation CNN has picked up on some of this and said, you know, if Fetterman is really not well enough to debate his opponent, celebrity doctor Mehmet Oz, then maybe he's really not well enough to be in the United States Senate. Remember, there's only 100 senators, and they sit in terms of the power circle, you know, one level below the president. So this is a very important position, and I have to wonder why people would elect someone who clearly is not physically up to the job. It's not like they don't have alternatives. Now, Mehmet Oz is not well known as a politician. He's well known as a celebrity on television. His challenge is that he lives in New Jersey and has a home in California. And so the question comes as to what are his ties to Pennsylvania and whether he has a legitimate claim to what's going on there. But in any event, Oz did start about 2 digits behind in polls when they began polling back in after the primaries in May. The good news for the Republican candidate, Oz, is that he is only a few points behind, according to latest polls, 4% in one poll, 5% in another, with 7 weeks to go. Plus, with Oz pushing for a debate with far left Fetterman, Fetterman's got a lot of baggage to defend because he is on a committee that decides whether convicts will be released from Pennsylvania prisons. And he has released a lot of folks out there. And of course, as many of us know, recidivism, meaning criminals who repeat crimes, is extremely high, that I think he's got a lot to explain. And it would also be interesting to see just simply how competent he is in terms of having discussion. So for these reasons, we offer one of our special F grades to John Fetterman, Pennsylvania gubernatorial candidate. Our series of interviews for Saving America establishes that the world is full of interesting people. Saving America welcomes Maria Dunn, and she is running to complete the term as a U.S. representative in District 18, and that is due to the death of the longtime incumbent. This district has included my personal residences for decades. This odd-shaped district presently includes the center and east sides of the Heights, as well as many other Houston neighborhoods, even including Houston International Airport. She has earned a bachelor's degree at Boston College and a law degree at the University of Illinois School of Law. Maria then spent 27 years at energy companies solving complex legal and business challenges, developing strategies to drive growth and innovation, and becoming a sustainability leader. Known for her integrity and decisive leadership, Maria has successfully navigated change and led teams to achieve outstanding results. She is a wife, a mother, and community advocate. She's committed to fostering job creation, supporting businesses, small and large, and using her problem-solving skills to make a positive impact on her community. We welcome Maria Dunn for her first appearance on Saving America.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here with you all today.
And the pleasure is ours, I assure you. As you know, we asked 3 questions. And the first one, I don't want to ask the same questions. We do have a few candidates that we interview. So we try and think of things that are a little bit different than the last time we did an interview. So you've lived in several distinct parts of the United States. How has that experience in other parts of the United States helped you in terms of being a better Houstonian?
Thank you. I love that because it touches on a really important part that I bring to the district, and that is breadth and depth and love of people. And so when I grew up north in Chicago and went to school on the East Coast, I also worked in California and I've worked in Vermont, lived in Oklahoma for a number of years, but I've sunk my roots in Houston. I've lived here more than 20 years. I raised my family here. I too live in the district. So this role and this seat is personal to my family and me. One of the things I think that living in different parts of the country has done for me, and I've always loved it, is emphasize the value of culture. That's that unspoken aspect of the way we act with the people, and to be aware of different cultures and sensitive and mindful and respectful to it, I think is helpful. And then the other thing it has helped me figure out is how we have so much in common. That while we may have geographical differences or cultural differences, it is something that can bring people with their humanity together over commonalities.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me. Now, you were a corporate attorney for 27 years. Some might ask how that impacts your ability to be a good congresswoman now.
Yeah. Let me tweak that experience just a little bit, if I may,
Sure.
because I've worked 27 years in the energy industry. About
Aha.
half of that time was as a lawyer, and that was in-house doing business deals, mergers and acquisitions, growing businesses, having to change and transform businesses. So that has been one experience, and I love the law. I love the rule of law. I think it is one of the things that is so important and precious about the United States with our constitutional democratic republic. It provides civility. It provides a way to come together to do business. And when we have differences, we have rule of law. But then the other half of my career was leading the sustainability group. And that, I think, brings together and fostered something that is very applicable to running in a short term. We have change going on. With the passing of Sheila Jackson Lee, we will have a new congresswoman in this seat in November for the remaining term. And so sustainability, balancing competing interests, people issues, environmental issues, economic issues, that I learned to navigate. I used to affectionately call it proceeding through the fog. When we don't know what's going on, sometimes we need to stand still, but a lot of times we need to progress and do the next right thing. And it may be small, it may be large, but we have to still continue to progress even when things are foggy. So that experience, I think, allows me to understand the law, respect the law, love the law. I worked in policy in both of those roles for almost 30 years now. So how laws are developed, how regulations are developed, that's a great strength that I bring to this seat and to all of our residents, the diversity that we talked about in the first question of District 18.
As we look at that, it's kind of interesting because do some people come to you and say, isn't it an oxymoron to be called a sustainability person if you're involved with the oil and gas industry? Because, of course, that's the big Satan of fossil fuels.
Right. Yes, we hear that. And the other challenge is when we think about sustainability, I think of an intersecting Venn diagram with 3 circles, and we aim for that sweet spot where people issues, environmental issues, economic issues are in balance. But we can think of examples where if we don't pay attention to economic or environmental issues, people and profitability may get completely squeezed out, if you will. And that's not really long-term viable. Same thing if one is just driven by profitability and ignores your people, your communities, your vendors, your customers. That's not viable either. And the environment. So one can see that balance, and it's trying to balance those competing interests in an industry that's very highly regulated. And then I would say, as a practical matter, David, I lost power for 6 days in the most recent storm we had here. And it's pretty uncomfortable after about 12 hours, isn't it? So
Yes.
the importance of reliable, affordable energy, I think we have learned. We have the benefit of being in the energy capital, and the companies that I worked for and with are trying to find that sweet spot to deliver a product that's so valuable and needed economically, caring for communities, and environmentally well.
It's a tough job. And of course, one of my favorite questions when we interview first-time candidates, and as you know, we talked before the interview that I have indeed many years ago been a candidate myself. It's tough. So you're running for office for the first time. Tell our audience something about how you formed your decision and what do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah, thank you. So I retired from my company after 27 years, as you said, at the end of the year, and I wanted to be footloose and fancy free for all of 2024. My former team laughed at me, and they took the under on that wager and said, there's no way you're going to make it the whole year. So beginning of the year, did some fun travel, helped one of my children through some situations, middle of the year, did some little bit home repair and improvement. And then when this seat came open, I got really quiet and reflective because it kept coming back to me to do something. You need to do something. We need common sense leadership in this seat at this time of change. And so I kept reflecting on it, and I didn't even know if it was possible. So we have it was not possible for me to run for the general election term. Lana Santonzi had filed. She's running against Sylvester Turner. She's a wonderful candidate. And so I thought about the remaining term and bringing together ability to navigate through the fog, mentoring people, leadership, loving diversity of people living in the district. And it finally came back to me and said, well, can you do it? And I could. So I filed. And can I get a team together? I could. Can I get volunteers together? I can. And so the metaphor of a Bailey Bridge, where you unfold it and you build it as you cross the river to get to your goal on the other side. This is a Bailey Bridge event that is unfolding at every time. And I felt called to serve my neighbors and the community and the district at this time.
Well, we're certainly glad you're doing it. Like I said, I am personal to this one because I live in the district. How can our audience get more information about you and your campaign?
You bet. So we have a website, we have Facebook, we're on X. MariaDunn4Texas.com is our website, and there you can find everything. The Facebook, the connections, X. Would love if you would follow us. It takes resources, just like to run a business. It takes resources to run a business. It takes resources to run for a Congress or a state seat. So if people feel compelled to make donations, we'd love to have that. And then the third thing I'd say, so importantly, is if you're registered to vote, get out and vote. Vote early. It starts on Monday, October 21st. With our conversation today, that's just about 5 days away. Vote early. Don't wait till November 5th. We don't know what may or may not happen. Will there be enough paper? Will a tree fall down on a site? Don't let any of that happen to you. There are numerous locations, and early voting, I think the benefit of it is one can go to any site. So wherever you are, running an errand, picking up the kids, going to work, going to church, it's open on Saturday and Sunday. Get out and vote. In addition to voting early, what I would love people to do is vote all the way down the ballot. And while it looks like an inordinate, huge number of races to vote on, when I've talked with people, it's about 6 minutes. So, we start president, senator, congress people. On our ballot, it's a little different. It's because of the special election. You'll have remaining term, Lana Santonzi or her opponent. And then you'll see special election, next election, remaining term, me and my opponents. And then keep going, because there are roles that impact our everyday life that you have to keep going down the pages. The sheriff, the constable, precinct representatives, judges. So I can get elected and pass a law, and the president can sign it, or at the state level, the governor can. But the way we check that and it's applied is in the courts with the judges. And so people need to vote all the way down the ballot until you're the very, very last one. I think the very last one might be
3 bond issues.
The bond issues. Thank you, David. Until you get to the last bond issue and make your choice and vote, you're not done. So let's get it done by getting the ballot completely done when you vote, starting early election.
Business students, business persons, or consumers, business law impacts much of what you do. This segment is designed to help you get past the headlines on key stories. The Georgia Supreme Court blocks 2 third-party presidential candidates from the ballot. As America approaches the presidential election, last-minute issues related to who will be on the ballots in various states takes on a special urgency. This was a recent case in Georgia reported by the Epoch Times that is a good example. In Georgia, third-party presidential candidates Cornel West, an independent and a very high-profile activist, and Claudia de la Cruz, a socialist, are not qualified to appear on the presidential ballot. This was the unanimous ruling of the Supreme Court of Georgia on September 25. The backstory here is that in response to an earlier administrative ruling that kept the 2 off the ballot, Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, lowered the signature threshold needed for petitions for ballot access to 7,500. Democrats then appealed, arguing the case that West and de la Cruz failed to qualify to be on the ballots because they were well short of the required number of votes. The Georgia Supreme Court upheld the Democrats' appeal. The concern of the Democrats was the appearance of these 2 liberal candidates on the ballot might siphon away votes from the Harris-Walz ticket. As a result, Georgia voters will have a choice of 4 presidential candidates: Democrat Kamala Harris, Republican former President Donald Trump, Libertarian Chase Oliver, and the Green Party's Jill Stein. Cornel West, obviously unhappy with the final ruling, noted that voters could still write him in. De la Cruz complained that the 2-party system prevented other candidates from being selected by the voters. At the same time, with crowded ballots and limited voter attention spans, having a minimum number of supporters to appear on a ballot, especially for the presidency, seems reasonable. The latest on the January 6th prosecutions. Virtually all Americans are aware of the riot that took place on January 5th, 2021 in the Capitol. The stated purpose was to protest the election outcome, making Joe Biden the president over incumbent Donald Trump. That was only part of the story. Subsequent to that, more than 1,200 people have been charged. Of that number, more than 460 were in prison for their role in the Capitol attack. At least 718 guilty pleas have resulted, many of those with jail time. Then the U.S. Supreme Court ruled near the end of the 23-24 term that the charge of obstructing an official proceeding did not apply to the January 6th protests. The actual case involves a Pennsylvania law enforcement official. In a 6-3 vote, SCOTUS ruled that the law applied only to evidence tampering in official proceedings. This was the main charge against most of the January 6 protesters, so many pending prosecutions will need to be reviewed or dropped. More important, those that pled guilty without the benefit of this opinion may move to withdraw their pleas, which would clear their criminal record. So the question is, how did the FBI and other federal law enforcement round up all of these potential defendants? Well, there was not an organized sign-in at the Capitol that day where people signed their name and said what state they were from or whatever. So how'd they find them? Well, it turns out they used something called geofencing. That may now be falling apart due to recent ruling of the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The ruling struck down geofencing warrants on the basis that they were an illegal dragnet. Warrants are supposed to be specific under the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. These warrants were too broad, according to the Fifth Circuit, and violated the defendant's rights to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. This could impact at least 300 of those charged in the January 6th matter. For those who are interested, Judge Ho's concurring opinion is a powerful endorsement of that decision and explanation. While this may be brought up to SCOTUS next, it will be interesting to see where this goes. I think the current SCOTUS justices will agree with Judge Ho. News reports nationally have headlined a settlement agreement by the Johnson & Johnson Company to create a $700 million settlement trust regarding the long-running issues over cancer and their famous talc products. This settlement applies to 47 states. J&J was founded in 1886 by the three Johnson brothers. From the early days, it was famous for a variety of medical products, and then around 1894, 8 years after they started, they introduced their famous baby powder. From that base, it expanded into an international concern in many different health fields. But a product as innocent as baby powder has become a huge issue. The allegations are that women using talc on their private parts may have contracted cervical cancer and other serious illnesses. What is the theory of liability? Well, talc is a rock that is ground into powder. It is reportedly harmless. However, talc contains small amounts of asbestos. It is reported that this contamination could be the cause of these cancers and other illnesses. At least one mega verdict against J&J and a bankruptcy court denying some help has pushed this settlement forward for the company. It will no longer sell any talcum products. I believe another talc product they had was called shower-to-shower powder. It has not admitted any wrongdoing in the proposed settlement. This large amount will be funded into the trust in 4 annual payments. The settlement is reminiscent of the Johns Manville asbestos settlement some years ago. In fact, that case dates to the late 1980s. And though it was in the billions, at least $2 billion, there's about $600 million that has been paid out of the trust to the Johns Manville Trust to date. Thanks for joining me for Saving America. If you have questions or comments, please find me on various social media sites. I'm Dr. David D. Schein, and I will see you next week.
Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.